Jaguars training camp in 2025 has begun, and I'll tell you why they have so much speed to burn on the outside and what it means here on today's episode of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is, in fact, your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. It is your team every day. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On Jaguars podcast that you can find wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap into that location each and every day. Whether you watch or listen, we will be there. Today's show and this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Once again, if I haven't said it, shout out to the everydayers for joining us each and every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We appreciate you and your time spending it here with us. And if you're new here, I'll give you a chance to enjoy the show as well and hopefully give you a reason to come back. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to be reporting on training camp. Boots on the ground, man. The first day of training camp happened, and all of them are different. They all seem differently, at least. The one common thing they have is, all right, it's a fresh start. What do we have? I'm glad you asked because I'm going to tell you that here. All right, I'm going to go in reverse order. We're going to end the show talking about how leaders are emerging. I'm going to tell you who the guys, and we know the coaches lead, but we're going to tell you who the people in uniform are that are demonstratively leading this team on the football field. In the middle, the team seems like it will be extremely aggressive on both sides of the ball. There's a lot of give and take with that, good and bad. We will absolutely discuss that, but we're going to start by talking about the other things that my eyes tell me, and that is that the wide receivers can absolutely fly. And when I say fly, I mean fly. We all know about Brian Thomas Jr. I'll give you a quick update on him. Brian Thomas Jr. looks thicker in his leg area. I'm not out there body watching, but it's a part of our business to report on gains that guys seem to have made. And one of the things that I always said about BTJ is when his body starts filling in a little bit, last year he looked like a rookie when I first saw him. Then he didn't play like a rookie once the season started. And now he doesn't look like a rookie, if you know what I mean. He looks a little bit thicker, got a little bit more of that NFL weight room muscle on him in the offseason. But it just doesn't stop there. Of course, there's Travis Hunter, who makes routine catches. Well, he makes hard things look like routine catches. Balls that were thrown in the past, in the middle of the defense, guys would go up and maybe struggle, and he catches everything on the drills. He catches it and turns so fast and turns and starts getting up the field so quickly. It reminds me of Percy Harvin. And if people ever remember Percy Harvin when he played in the league or when he was at the University of Florida, he gets top speed in like those first two steps. That is Travis Hunter. He is extremely sudden. Didn't look as thin-framed as I remembered him looking before. I just think he doesn't look like a rookie. He doesn't look like a rookie. And the routes are crisp, all of that. And Dyami Brown, man, you want to talk about fast and speed to burn. Dude can flat out put one foot in front of the other. And as a total unit, I believe that is very, very beneficial. Now, I'm going to mention somebody else real quick. The fourth receiver. And it's important because we have to know that Travis will spend a lot of time on the other side of the ball. I'll go through that in a little bit, where Liam Cohen talked after practice about some of the things that Travis is going to be doing. Josh Cephas. Let me tell you about Josh Cephas, man. Josh Cephas is wearing number 80, Joshua Cephas. He's 6'2", 193 pounds. Played at Texas at San Antonio. He was here last year. This is what I'm talking about when folks talk about player development. And I know it was just the first day, but he made two big-time catches at a time during the practice where you don't expect a guy who's trying to make the team to even be in there holding that rep. But they went for him. They targeted him. It was very, very intentional. And he had a starter on him. One time he made an adjustment on the ball deep. The next time he just ran up underneath the ball. And let me explain something to you. It is going to be very hard for them not to keep him. And if you ask me, he has a real shot along with, of course, Parker Washington, who also made another catch in traffic. I'm just going to tell you right now, it looked like I got my 5. It looks like I have my 5 good men at wide receiver. And I know it's just one day. But, man, I was impressed by his body type. You know, they always like to have a room full of guys who can kind of look different. And it's the basketball player philosophy. And I know this organization or this group of coaches did not say that, but I've heard it from a number of coaches how they like their room to look. Well, Josh Cephas makes that room look a whole lot better. Maybe not as thick as Brian Thomas Jr., maybe about 10, 15 pounds lighter. A little bit heavier, though, than the other 2 guys. I think Diami Brown is listed at 6 feet, 195. Cephas is 6'2", 193. He looks a little longer than that. He looks a little more heavier than that. But I like how he rounds that room out along with Parker Washington. So I'm going to just tell you right now, I'm already calling that those are the first 5. I don't know how many they're going to keep. The one thing I will tell you, they can put them up and down, man. They run. And they get to their spots quick, even when there was some resistance. You saw the release. You saw them stack. You saw all of those dudes, especially those first 3, get out of there like the way it's almost as if you're watching a Kentucky Derby and that gate flies open and the horses that's going to get to the front, they run right to the front. Every single time they release, they give the quarterback extremely easy targets. And I'm being careful here, but to tell you that it looks a little bit different. And it should look a little bit different. When you got a guy like BTJ, who was a number 1 pick, you got Travis Hunter, who you traded multiple picks for, including next year's number 1 for, and he's one of the most special athletes we've ever seen. And then prior to you getting him now, or even you know him, you can get him, you went out and got Diami Brown. They believe in separation. Separation makes for easier throws, puts more pressure on the defense. Separation ain't going to be a problem. Size ain't going to be a problem. Catch radius with Brian Thomas Jr., Josh Cephas, and, of course, Travis Hunter leading the way is not going to be a problem. Diami Brown provides his catch radius based on the fact that he is hard to keep up with. They got bunnies, man. These dudes can go. And it's going to look a whole lot different with the guys that can separate. Now, I'll tell you why it's so important. It's so important because it looks like they're also going to be extremely aggressive. I'm going to come back here and give you reasons why I believe they're going to be way more aggressive, and you're going to see a whole bunch more stuff going downfield, and you'll see a whole bunch of big plays. We'll do all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning big purchases, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center, and you can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Man, having everything in one app is easy for me because I ain't that tech savvy. So I need that one push button effort that Monarch Money gives me. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Rougiet Ready. That's right. Guys, if you probably heard of Viagra and Cialis, maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiet Ready. Rougiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rougiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average about 15 minutes, and the effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and ready when you need to be. All right, if traditional options haven't worked, Rougiet might be the answer. Head to Rougiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use the code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety effectiveness or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiet website for full safety information. Moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars. First day of the 2025 Jaguars training camp. And hard to really be overly impressed when you've done this for a couple of decades with the first day in camp when everybody just has on shorts and helmets. But there are some things that you can notice about what they're trying to do. And one of the things I did notice, other than the team having a lot of speed outside, is, well, what does that mean and what is that going to mean for them from a play calling perspective? And without getting too much into the scheme of things, I can tell you that they're going to be extremely aggressive. They were just in helmets, but there were some times when the release on the outside was right there, and Travis or the other quarterbacks, whether it be Nick Mullins, who did make one mistake that I didn't like, and John Walford, whether it be any of those dudes, they were taking those shots down the field, in the seam, down the sideline, in between coverages. And the reason why they were so effective is because guys were actually getting into the second and third level very, very fast. And that causes the defense to have to stand there and hesitate. And then a quarterback can just make a very, very easy routine throw. And it doesn't even have to be perfect because they have guys that can go up and get it. So deep middle of the field, deep sidelines, all of that stuff will be affected. There was one time in OTAs this year where play after play after play, they kept checking down. And I heard Liam say, throw the ball down the field. Yeah, throw the ball down the field. Come on, throw it. Like, we got to get down there. We got to put pressure on these people, and we got to put scoring on these guys. Now, it's a mindset, but it's also about the protection. And I think they anticipate that they are going to be better protected. One of the things I did ask Liam Cohen, I got this question off at the end of practice, and I asked him, I said, Coach, one of the first things when you took over, you talked about, you emphasized the physicality and people seeing you guys when y'all come out of the huddle. I said, how are you going to work? What's the plan here to make sure you get that done before the season? Are you going to have a more physical camp? Because, and the reason I asked that question, because in the past, when a team got banged up too much in the preseason, they kind of pulled back the physicality a little bit, right? And then there were some years when the team sort of came out slow, and it's like, well, we probably should have hit a little bit more in practice to get used to the physicality. I mean, man, I'm just sitting there thinking about this, and my mind is kind of racing. I want to make sure I get all of this out to you. The offensive line has a lot to do with them getting this ball down the field and those quarterbacks having time to do that. So there has to be this confidence built up with the O-line. And how do you instill that without knowing how physical these guys can be, right? I remember I was just telling y'all, I asked Liam Cohen. Cohen basically said, yeah, at some point we got to start hitting. We're gonna have a very physical practice. You can't simulate it. And there's a paraphrase in his words. You can probably hear it at Jaguars.com. At the point I asked that question towards the end of his media session after practice. But in order for them to have the time, remember the Jaguars did not go down the field in the past because they'd either only have one guy who's fast or the other guy, they just weren't threatening enough, right? Or it's because they didn't feel like they could. And a lot of people blame that on Trevor Lawrence, but it wasn't on Trevor. It was on the fact that, well, generally they were on a time clock and they were very, very limited in how much time they had to be able to get the ball down the field. They are going to call this thing with the anticipation that they can throw the ball because they're going to block people. This goes back to something that offensive line coach Sean Starrett mentioned during the sit down and the roundtable that we had with that they had with the media, when he was just like, this is as comfortable he's been rolling out 10 different guys, 5 and 5, and being able to line it up and play. So all of these things go hand in hand and work together. Because I was wondering if the quarterback was going to be gun shy, if he was going to have this hangover, the same type of hangover that fans may have because of all of the things that have gone on here. I am so glad that this is a fresh start across the board. By the way, I talked to EVP Tony Baselli. We're going to work it out, man. Tony's going to come on the show. He's going to come on the show. I mean, he was a matter of fact about it too. He's like, yeah, hell yeah, I do it. So I got to make some arrangements, but Tony and I will sit down and you'll hear from him, and you'll hear. I told him I've been telling y'all that the radio Baselli ain't the Baselli. He said, and he smiled. He said, yeah, they don't know Wig. We're going to have to show them that the radio Baselli is totally different from the Baselli with some responsibility. So shout out to him. But yeah, all of this has to work hand in hand. Even the running backs, they're explosive. We know about Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, but that Bashaw Tootin, man, and LaQuint Allen, you talk about guys that know how to put them up and down. And then Jaquindon Jackson, he's the different back that they have. He's 6'2", 223 pounds, a rookie out of Arkansas. So we'll see, how that all works itself out. But they have the bodies, man. They definitely have. By the way, offensive lineman Wyatt Milam, I asked him, how does he say his name? And you just heard me say it. So it's Milam. I said, man, I've been calling you Milliam since you were in college and since the Senior Bowl. He says everybody does that. But he did tell me it is Wyatt Milam. So shout out to Wyatt Milam for letting me know how to pronounce his name. All right. Leaders are emerging. Demonstrative. Guys that hold each other accountable. That seem to be teaching. One of them's in the secondary. And he's a new person. And he's somebody that I mentioned too, that was going to have a critical role here. And I had heard this from the Dallas Cowboys, from Locked On Cowboys, Marcus Mosher and Landon McCool. I'd heard how good of a leader Jordan Lewis was. Well, we see it and saw it live in action. He was correcting Tyson Campbell on a few occasions, and the coaches were agreeing with him. And he was basically telling everybody what they need to do and where they need to go. We're going to talk about him and some other guys and go over the Mason Smith pup listing. He's not practicing right now, but I'll tell you why I don't think you should be too concerned with it. We'll do that in the third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. Fantasy football is back. Fire up the group chat. Get your draft board ready and buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions we live for. It's all going down on Yahoo Fantasy. This year, me and my friends at Locked On Jaguars are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too if you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league, right? I mean, this is the only one I play. Yahoo is where I've been for the last 15 years, and I don't know why you do anything different because they're the absolute truth. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th. Stay tuned and get started by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. All right, first day of camp, Locked On Jaguars. We had boots on the ground out there. We will be back tomorrow. And every day they allow us to come out there, we will be there, with the exception of next week, and I'll explain that to you as next week comes. I got a little procedure, and I won't be able to make it out there, but we will make sure that we load you up with pods every single day based on good reports from the ground that we saw. Got a chance to exchange some ideas today with a bunch of guys in the media, and it always is very pleasant to see a bunch of people that you haven't seen very often, but you all have it in common about this year. I'm thinking about going to joint practices too down in Miami, so I have to see if I can work that out and give you some coverage from down there. But one of the things I noticed with certain guys are leaders. Jordan Lewis was working one-on-one with Tyson Campbell prior to practice starting, and then on a multiple occasions saw where the communication was a little off. And this is where I try to tell people, we have to remember that they're working on things. We have to remember that what they're doing is, you're seeing the choreography. I liken it to a Chris Brown concert. You're not seeing the end result. You're seeing them practice their steps and have to correct each other and get their timing down. So there were a couple of occasions where you could see that Tyson, he was like, he did something and didn't quite like the way it turned out. And he was like, and Jordan kind of corrected him. He was like, no, earlier. He said something like earlier. And then he was motioning to push out. And right at the same time, here comes the coach. Here comes the coach running right over there. And he said the exact same thing to Tyson Campbell. And it was almost like it was Ron Miles, the secondary coach. And it was like you saw Tyson get it. And then it was something else. Tyson clapped his hands and didn't really like it. And he kind of told him. So they're running this stuff that Jordan Lewis is used to. And see, this is the thing. You got people that match what you're trying to do, as opposed to having square peg, round hole. Now, this is why you go out and get a Jordan Lewis, a 10-year veteran, a guy, I think it's about 10 years now. Let me see how long is Jordan Lewis. Yeah, it's his 9th year. But you go out and get a guy who's played a lot of football, and he's played it the way that you wanted to play. Therefore, he's able to teach these things. And Liam Cohen even discussed about the extra work that these guys have been doing, the extra work that has been going into these guys' vacation time and how hard they've worked. So I noticed him. I noticed another young guy. We know that Foye Oluwakun is the leader of the linebackers. But let me explain something to you. Jack Kaiser looks like the part. If people used to say this about Paul Posluszny, like you make a linebacker in a lab, it's pause. Jack Kaiser kind of looks like that. He's thick-legged. He's very fluid as an athlete. He's very, very quick to diagnose things. He has really, really good change of direction. He's played a lot of football. He was a big integral part of what Notre Dame did last year. But he just looks like that kid, like when you see quarterbacks or you see baseball players that are pitchers, and you say, I can tell he's been doing that since he's a little boy. Jack Kaiser looked like he's been playing linebacker since he was a toddler. That's just how it feels, how it looks. I anticipate him being a very, very big part of the Jaguars' future and having that semi-leadership role where Foy's the leader, but Jack Kaiser is definitely right there. Lots of dudes on special teams. Daniel Thomas, a whole bunch of guys helping, instructing, teaching. Of course, I saw Yasir Abdullah out there. Shout out to Yasir. Jalen McLeod, the young kid, out there really, really getting it in and mixing it in with Heath Farwell when it comes time to learn on special teams. And, of course, they had some older veteran coaches out there too, man, that really, really, really you saw the experience. And that was one of the things that was a little bit of a concern, like how many grown people are there really in the room with so many of these young coaches? Well, Coach Babich is out there, and he's been around this thing for a long time, man. And he was out there on special teams, and he was out there telling guys what to do, what not to do. Edgar Bennett worked one-on-one with Travis Hunter a lot on Travis's releases, doing all of those little things. So there's two things I want to get to before we end the day, and that is Travis Hunter's, something we mentioned yesterday, how are they going to divide his time? Cohen mentioned at the end of his presser that they made a mistake early by having so many days where Travis wouldn't be on defense and then so many more days where he wouldn't be on offense. So now a day doesn't go by that even if he's with the offense, he spends time later on in the meeting rooms with the defense. He says at least once or twice a day. He said that they made an error because they went too long without letting him go to the other side of the ball. And then when he went over there, he had no clue of what he was up to. He said, so 3 straight practices of all going one way without contact is not something they're going to do. So once again, when asked what would it look like when you're breaking up his time in his meetings, it's still a work in progress. And they're transparent enough to tell you that, hey, we realize that we can't do it like that. We have to do it this way. So the way it is when he's with wide receivers, which he was today, he's still going to meet with, maybe prior to or either after practice, the defensive secondary staff. Now, I think that is going to be the reverse the other way. And if there's somebody that can handle it, it's Travis. Travis looked like the dude that was least tired today, even though all those guys are in incredible shape. Travis really looked like he wasn't that tired at all. And it looks like he could go and practice another time. He's one of the few players I know that 2-a-days might not bother him. So good kid, very, very good kid. And they're managing that. And they said that it's their job. It's incumbent on them to manage that. The other thing is news that hit yesterday, Mason Smith is on the PUP list. I'll tell you, he's on the bike and he was standing there and he was going very aggressive on the bike. They haven't disclosed what his injury is. I will say that he had something like a compression sleeve on his right thigh, not thigh, but under his knee where his calf is, between his knee and his ankle. So I don't know if that's what's injured, but just to give you a visual, but he was on the bike being super aggressive. He had the medicine ball being super aggressive. Liam Cohen doesn't think it's going to be something that lingers for a long time. Says if a game was today, he don't know if he'd be able to go, but he doesn't seem to think that he's that far off. He just tweaked something. But he mentioned that Mason Smith has had a very, very good offseason, has really bought in, been in the weight room, has gains, and he looks like he has gains. He is a big, big man. He's one of the defensive linemen that actually looks like a big offensive tackle. So I'm looking forward to reporting the rest of this stuff to y'all as we get it. We'll continue to try to get you as much as we can. I know you're all starving and jonesing for it. What's going to happen is y'all going to get sick of this too. Y'all going to be ready for some real football. Then you're going to get the hitting portion. And then what will happen, you'll get sick of that. And then you want the preseason portion. And then about 1.5 preseason games in, you're going to get tired of that. And you can't wait for the real action to come. So we're just going to keep building this up step by step until we get you guys ready for the opener this season. All right, man. You guys take care. We'll see you tomorrow here on Locked On Jaguars with more from training camp this offseason.